You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Leanne Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And the next way that you can walk that path is by joining our brand new crucible, Waking the Wild Medicine. This is for you if you know you came here to do important, much needed work, but despite all the years of seeking, you still haven't discovered exactly what it is. If you're clear on what you came here to do, but the normal ways of doing business just don't feel aligned to you, and maybe aren't working too well either. If you've been successful creating a living, doing something else, but you know your soul is now calling you towards something much deeper. Or if you're already doing your precious soul work, but you know you're now ready to create a previously undreamed of level of impact with it. You'll be joining a potent, intimate circle of sovereign men and women, each of you feeling the call to embody your soul work. During our 6 months together, we will guide you to uncover your deepest soul medicine, know who your people are and what they long for, create your medicinal offering that meets their longing, become a beacon for your medicine in a way that magnetizes your people to it. If you're feeling called to this journey, if 2021 is the year that you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to watch the replay of our webinar on how to be your wild medicine. You can find that link to that at primalhappiness.co/medicine. But if you already know you're ready, you can claim your place there too. We begin on the 19th of January 2021, and there's a few places left. So don't miss out if you know it's for you. This week's show is with Lucy H. Pearce. She's the author of 9 life-changing nonfiction books, including Medicine Woman, Burning Woman, and Creatrix, She Who Makes. Her writing focuses on women's healing through archetypal psychology, embodiment, and creativity. She is currently working on her next book, She of the Sea. In this show, we spoke about the impact that COVID restrictions, especially lockdown, can have on our creative flow and the practices and rituals we can harness to nourish and sustain creativity during this time of change. Let's dive in. Hello, Lucy. Welcome back to the show.
Hello. So nice to be back again.
Oh, wonderful to have you back. It really is. So just found out that you've gone back into lockdown over in Ireland again, literally today. And we've obviously spent a bit of time just talking about that, and then realised this has provided what we think will be a really helpful thing to talk about in today's show. And speaking about you as someone who's kind of, obviously your work is about being creative, and then noticing the challenges that are being created by this time, things like lockdown, things like the restrictions that have been brought around by COVID. So our hope is very much to make this something that really illuminates the challenges for us, that the people that kind of identify as being a creative in whatever way. And then how do we move through these times in a way that allows us to keep nourishing, sustaining that flow of creativity? So this feels really timely. I shared with you, I've been in that place a lot recently. I've been talking to friends who are artists and they're struggling in similar ways. So I'm really feeling like, yes, this is the one. This is the perfect topic for now. So how do you feel about just sharing what those challenges look like for you? What are you noticing?
Sure. So it was really interesting. As you were speaking, I saw a connection, an energetic, visual connection that I hadn't spotted before about the word lockdown. If you think about creativity, we tend to associate it with flow, the flow state of energy coming out in a kind of an undifferentiated flow. And what is lockdown? Lockdown is shut down. It's a stopping of energy. And
wow, yes. Which doesn't just affect our physical movement.
No, it affects our energy, our creative energy. And so what I suddenly realized
oh my gosh, that's so obvious now you've said it.
I've been hearing from creatives, all the creatives that I know, all the creatives I've been, watching, listening to, all the TV and podcasts that have been made by creatives during lockdown. So many people saying, people who are professional creatives whose income relies on their creative flows, saying, I can't create at the moment. And you can't use the excuse of, I don't have time, because during that first lockdown, we all had time. I mean, those who were working full-time from home with little kids, I'm not saying they had time, but I'm saying those of us who are professional creatives or didn't have little kids as well as full-time work, surely we should have been uber creative, all that time to ourselves, no distractions. Why couldn't we just create? Because we were on lockdown.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. So energetically, our energy was just kind of shut into our bodies, kind of like just bouncing off the walls, not sure where to go because we didn't know where we could put it. Like, what did the future hold? So therefore, where could we point that creative expression? We didn't know, because we didn't know if there was going to be exhibitions or festivals or concerts or, whether we'd be able to launch books, because nobody knew any of that. And so there was that internal chaos and turmoil with no destination that we could really outlet it. All we could do was either express that chaos and frustration, or some of us prettified it. So, just do kind of pretty distractions, but not actually deal with that inner feeling. But most of us just switched on Netflix, got onto our phones, playing games. I got totally addicted to so many phone games because I couldn't be in my body. It was too anxious. It was my brain didn't know where to land. My body didn't feel safe because I didn't know what was happening around me. I need to qualify this by saying I am neurodiverse, I'm autistic. And so for me, any change in stuff is stressful anyway. My stress response and my anxiety levels are naturally higher than people who wouldn't be on the spectrum. But most people I knew, neurodiverse or not, were having that need to numb. Like the amount of people who were baking, gorging ourselves on carbohydrates, just trying to make things feel safe, make ourselves feel better. And so I, like many of us, put on a fair chunk of weight during lockdown from all that baking and eating, just trying to kind of keep myself feeling calm. So what I focused on during late summer, early autumn, was I knew that we were going to be going back into lockdown, and I knew it was going to be before Halloween. I was saying it to everybody. I just knew once kids were back in school, other bugs were going around, everyone was inside, it was going to be getting hair-raising again. So I knew I was going to need to pre-plan taking care of myself. I needed to anticipate how to hold myself in a more gentle and caring way that would mean I didn't need to shut down or numb, that I didn't need to lock down internally.
Yeah. Oh, wow. 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 And this is, I love everything you've said there. There's so much truth there. I did an episode right back, probably in April, I think it was, with Jess Heading, who does a lot of work with women and eating and weight. And she said something very similar, like, let's not make ourselves wrong for what we're doing, like the wisdom of what we need to do to numb ourselves, even if that is eating our body weight in carbs every day. You know,
like,
yeah, exactly.
We're feeling endangered. What do? You make sure you've got enough energy reserves. You make sure that your body, you're self-medicating, like you're making sure that your body is producing the neurotransmitters, the serotonin, the dopamine from that carbohydrate and sugar to ease your mental and physical energetic state. Like it's basic. So we're looking after ourselves. It's just
really
it's not a long-term strategy for good health, but short-term, it's very, very wise.
Very much so. And I really saw the difference between what was then, we were plunged into it with like really no warning at all. And none of us had like experienced.
That before.
No, exactly. Most of us have lived a life where we've not had those kind of experiences. So we were plunged into it, completely unawares, unprepared, did our best, got through it in the way we got through it. And now is a real, I just got chills as I was saying this, like, wow, the opportunity this time is to be able to, as you say, to hold ourselves in a gentle way. But also, I really hope, and I guess this is really the intention of this episode, is like, how do we allow ourselves to continue to like flow as that unique essence we are? How do we continue to be the gift that we are during this time too, where we don't have to just survive it? We don't have to kind of go on some kind of lockdown to get through it. We can actually continue to live in a way that's like adjusted for the time. So yeah, I love that. And the timeliness of this is just perfect.
So I was discussing with a lovely group of neurodiverse women who normally we would meet in person. Because of restrictions and lockdowns, we haven't been able to meet since, I guess, January, maybe early February. But we had an online meetup yesterday. And I was saying to them, just, I don't have a large social life. So lockdown doesn't like impact me in that way. I work from home. So why was I feeling so flustered by it, so overwhelmed and sad? And I realized that what it was, I was feeling grief, not necessarily for my life, because my life is actually reasonably untouched by it. It's the grief of the collective, the grief of all of those businesses that are shutting their doors yesterday and don't know if they're going to be able to reopen again because they're losing their Christmas season. They've lost their summer season. Like, how many family businesses, how many wonderful arts projects, all these things that people have put their hopes and their dreams and their love and their money into may not open again. And for somebody who's a creative entrepreneur, that breaks my heart, because I know how much hard work goes into those. And I know how valuable they are for our communities. Like, they're what makes our communities rich and nourishing. And they create shared spaces and shared experiences for us. And that makes me really sad. That we're going into an unknown in that sense, in that we don't know how many times, like our government have told us, we're going to need to continue this thing of locking down, opening up, locking down, opening up until we have a vaccine. And that could be another year and a half. So just seeing these waves of shutting down and then thinking, how can we stay connected? How can we open up whilst we're physically having to lock down? And how can we when we are out again, how can we support and sustain those community projects that really matter to us? Like, how can we do it in lockdown? And then how can we really make sure we're feet on the ground, money into those tills, when they're open? Because that's so grief. Somebody reminded me, and it made so much sense. Grief is love, which has nowhere to go.
Mm.
And again, it's that shutdown, it's that lockdown, it's that stoppage of a flowing emotion. And we experienced that very much during the last lockdown, with huge amounts of people losing loved ones and not being able to go and be with them. And so this grief for collective things as well as personal things is now kind of getting locked into our bodies and becoming more habituated. And so we are physically locking down our own energy. So for me, this time is about how can I make nourishing connections with those that I love who I can't currently see. So I have a very, very busy life with kids and a business and a creative career. So I'm not somebody who has time to be writing letters or the energy, because all my work is taken writing books, writing emails, writing social media posts. By the end of the day, I don't want to write anything more.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've decided to do is I'm learning kind of contemporary watercolors at the moment through online learning, which is fabulous. To companies that I'm using are Domestika and Skillshare, both of which have lots and lots of different, really wonderful creative teachers on there to learn new techniques from in all different types. And so I'm focusing on watercolors because that's my next book is She of the Sea. So it's to do with flow. So rather than just feel bad about wasting paint and paper as I'm learning these new techniques, what I've decided is each day I'm going to do those technical practices and turn it into a short letter for somebody I love. So it doesn't need to be a long, newsy letter. It's just going to be a couple of paragraphs, as well as this art made with love, this creative flow. So it's enabling me to get into flow without being all self-judgy or that it has to turn into a big project. It's not a big project. It's just a little act of love. And it's an act of connection, so that they then get something which is from my heart to theirs, something tangible, not an email or a text message, but something tangible that they can hold, that they can put up on their fridge, that they can look at during the day. And then because of the time of year it is, like the leaves are beautiful. So I've collected a bunch of colored leaves and I'm putting a couple of leaves in each one, because two of the people I'm sending them to are in care homes or bedbound. And so they're not going to be able to get out into this autumn. They might not even be able to see it from their window. And so for me, this is connecting them to the season as well, just so that so it's about connection and flow and allowing that life force, which is what is at the root of our creativity, to come through me to those I love in little ways.
Oh, such a beautiful example of ways that we can allow this to flow. And I was just thinking about the, I guess, the input that we often require as creatives. The book The Artist's Way came to mind, and her invitation to create an artist date every week, where you kind of go out and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but go out and, I don't know, take yourself to a gallery or something.
Which we can't do now.
No, we can't do. And I was thinking that's one of the challenges of this time, where as creatives normally we would have this just, absolute ocean of possibilities of ways to kind of consume that nourishing flow, which again is like part of that lockdown. That's lockdown to us too in many ways. And yet, I think as more consciousness we can bring to that as being like, this is required. In order to keep that flow, it's required. What are your thoughts in ways that we can continue having those kind of that artist date way of living during this time?
My mantra that I come back to again and again, which I have borrowed from Theodore Roosevelt, but is this: do what you can with what you have where you are. And that has been my guiding motto since my babies were tiny and I was stuck at home and I was like, oh, what do I do now? I can't do all the things I want to do, or I have too many ideas and I can't do them all now. Okay, so what can I do now from where I am? So that's the first thing, is to look again at what you have. Look again at your resources with new eyes, because I'm sat here thinking, oh, I can't go and see my friend or my sister. I'm sat here next to a bookcase full of books. Only about a third of them I have actually read. So I have so many resources that I have stockpiled for myself with hope and vision and love that I haven't had the time to access. They're there. I'm looking out my window and the leaves are changing colors. If I go outside and stop thinking, oh, I can't go wherever I need to go many kilometers away, actually, what's right here, right now? What's in my garden? What's on the road outside my house? And start seeing again, seeing with new eyes. I find, like, often I can't see stuff myself, whereas if I see it through my phone, I see it again. So I take photographs. I take photographs of details. I take photographs of book stacks, of leaves, of details of paintwork, and it helps me to notice the details that I would otherwise miss, because I believe that I know them already. I believe that they're familiar and boring. So defamiliarization is key. And our phones help us to do that. If you focus in on a tiny detail with your phone, if you go out and look for 10 red objects within 100 meters of your house, if you set yourself a task to find every circular item in your bedroom, that sort of thing, and then take a photograph of it, and you'll start finding that your eyes are like drawn to this pattern and that pattern, or the writing on that, and suddenly the creative energy is going again. But we just need to get beyond that familiarization of the mundane, which is just it's death to creativity, because we think we know. We don't know. We are surrounded by mystery and wonder everywhere, in our bedrooms, in our gardens, and we think we know, we think we understand, so we don't see the magic that's actually right there.
Oh my goodness, I love what you've said so much. Just a couple of things came to mind. One was the line from the Mary Oliver poem Summer Day, and I might slightly misquote this, but it's something like, I don't know what a prayer is, but I know how to pay attention. And for some reason that line always just gets me. And that came to mind. Like, if we can pay attention, and like deep attention, defamiliarized attention, wow, the magic there. And you also brought to mind, one of my practices is to have a sit spot. So a spot in nature that I go almost every day. For me, it's an old oak tree. And so for me, it's kind of both the spot itself and the tree. And I've returned there hundreds of times over the years. And every time I go, I see something new. Just within the tree itself, like just within this bark that I have spent, countless hours absorbed in, every single time I go, there's something new to see. But going back a few years, I wouldn't have done it. It'd be like the same old tree. It's because I've trained myself to look for that, trained myself to not look for the familiar, but to look for the unknown, to look for the mystery. And that for me is one of those, probably I'd say my most kind of powerful ritual, which definitely, particularly this year, has become even more important. But I think there's so many other ways we can do that too. I love what you said.
Well, you see, for me, Because I know another woman whose practice I respect so deeply, who does the same. She has this sit spot and she goes every day. To me, that feels like a should or a must. And it's a demand that I would place on myself and then avoid, because I am demand avoidant. Some people would know that as procrastination, but basically it means that there's an expectation or a demand from inside or outside, which you then avoid in order to alleviate the anxiety associated with that. So for me, that would turn into I should do this. And as soon as there's a should involved, I ain't going to do it because it feels like it's worthy or somebody else is expecting it. It's ridiculous, but that is how my brain works. So for me, what I've discovered is that I need to create what I call portals. And these portals are tiny, tiny practices which basically trick me into getting into the creative flow without triggering my demand avoidance. So I'm a very competitive person. I love challenges, and I love statistics and numbers and patterns. I'm a real geek when it comes to that. Give me an Excel spreadsheet and I'll be delighted. So what I've done is I've tried a few of the different habit trackers you can get on phones, and I found one called Habit Bull, which you can try for free, and then it's like £7 forever. And I've set myself little tiny self-care or creative tasks, challenges, and some of them I have to do them every day. Some of them I have to do them 3 times a week, and I get to see all the statistics of when I've ticked them off, and it's really tragic, but I like that sense of satisfaction. I get a little dopamine every time I have. So, for example, if I tell myself in my head, I need to move my body every day because that works for me, because I should do exercise every day. It doesn't happen. For some reason, if I've got it on my phone as that little reminder, then I don't know why, it's not a demand on me. So I don't procrastinate. It's like, oh, if I do this, I get to tick it off. Once I've done it, and I don't have an obligation of how long it has to be, I've just got to do it. Once I've done it, that kind of opens a portal for me into that flow state, where then I want to do other things associated with the flow state. Another one of mine is light a candle. Such a simple action. If I've got it in my head as I need to light a candle, it becomes a should. For some reason, because I've popped it on my little habit thing, it's this is a challenge. If I do it, I've ticked it off. When I light my candle, I say a prayer. When I say a prayer, I take a few minutes to just breathe deeply and reflect. Once I've done that, I'm in a totally different state and can create far more easily. The same with creative practice in the morning. If for me, that's why I wrote my book, Creatrix, She Who Makes, because for me, the artist's way thing just sets off all of my demand avoidance thing. Telling me to write 3 pages, come hell or high water, ain't gonna happen. So for me, I've decided, okay, after breakfast, I'm just going to get my stuff out, and it's just going to be there. And look, if I do something with it, I can tick it off on my phone. And then that's turned into writing those letters. And then once I'm in that creative zone, oh, look, I quite feel like doing something else. The same with taking photographs. I'm taking photographs every day when I drive my daughter to school. I'd stop on the side of the road and take a landscape photo on the way home. And there's just, again, it's the connection thing. I've connected with the landscape and the seasons around me. I've connected with my creative flow and that desire. So I'm not numbing out and trying to avoid everything around me and inside me. And then when I get home, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just edit that so it's even nicer. And when I've edited, I'm like, oh, I'll just share that on Instagram. And then I'm connecting with the other people who also think that's a beautiful photograph. And that connection is happening, that flow is happening, and I'm not shut off. I'm not alone. I'm not in that numbed out state of feeling disconnected from myself, the world around me, and everybody else.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love so much of that.
So it's those portals. It's knowing what your portals are. Another one is playlists. I create playlists as I'm working on different projects. Now I know I literally just need to press play on Spotify on a playlist, and it will bring me back to that emotional, mental state that I'm in when I create that. And it's as simple as that. Just pressing play on a playlist helps to rejig my energetic and brainwave energy. Just suddenly I can get into that space.
Yeah. Oh, so what I was about to ask you, what you've just said links to it so well. I was just thinking the power of what you could call rituals, and how for most of human history up until very, very recently, we really understood the power of kind of rituals as portals into transitioning into being in a different state, different states of consciousness, different ways of being. And how we've just lost that. We're so, again, on autopilot, and, in this, just like I go from this to this to this, most of which is being kind of externally instructed upon us. And we've really lost contact with the power of having these rituals into different things that we want to create for ourselves, different ways of being, which may be about creating. Like you, I have so many of those that have now, like when I was talking to a client a little while ago about rituals, and she asked me, like, can you give me some examples of how you fit in the various rituals into your morning? And as I shared it, I was like, my goodness, from the point I open my eyes, just in the first half an hour, I have so many little rituals that I do, but I'd not even realized, because they've become so woven into my life now. It's just something I do. And they include all sorts of things, like you, lighting a candle, things I'll say out loud, prayers, all sorts of things just like dotted in my day. Each of them like about consciously creating something, whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love that you've brought that in. And I think, again, there's still, if we consciously make that commitment to be in that flow, no matter if we've kind of got the external lockdown, there's so much we can, we still have so much possibility to create rituals, to create from. So much.
Absolutely. And we're in that sense, we're taking power over our own experiences in our lives, because we're saying, no matter what is happening on the outside, this is how I'm setting myself up for the best day that I can, for the best experience that I can, for the most connection that I can. And for me, another really simple thing is, my kids, none of them really like having breakfast in the morning. So I make us a fresh smoothie every morning. And that's one of my tick box things, because often what I'd do is I would have made breakfast for the kids. I wouldn't have had anything. Then by about 11:30, I would be snacking on all sorts of stuff because my blood sugar would be low and I wouldn't be able to figure out what I wanted to eat. Whereas now I have a smoothie with them. So I'm set up for eating better during the day. I've had 3 bits of fruit right there first thing in the morning. My blood sugar isn't all over the place because I've had something. And so just little things like that, that, again, I find habits really hard, and routines. I've, throughout my career, written again and again against routines, because routines are imposed on us from the outside usually. They usually to do with clock time and other people's rules. And so being someone who's both demand avoidant and don't really like other people being in control of me, I tend to reject and resent all of that. Whereas ritual for me is the opposite of a schedule. It's like, it's a chosen action which you are choosing for a purpose. And then if you're doing them regularly, then you're building habits which your body and your brain then get used to. And so for me, I'm ill quite a lot. And bedbound, exhausted. And so what I'm wanting to do is to build these things into my life that are so small and easy that I can do them even when I'm not really functioning. That it can't be run 5 miles a day, because that ain't going to happen except maybe, once every 4 years. Whereas for me, move, which I've called morning practice. You see, I haven't even said what it has to be. It can be my physio exercises. It can be yoga. It can be, it can be dancing, whatever. It's my morning practice. And just that is enough. What I was thinking when you were saying about rituals and how we've got out of the habit of it in this modern world, of course we have, because this modern world relies on the prefrontal cortex. It relies on the modern front bit of the brain, which is all about logic and planning. Whereas when we create rituals, what it's taking us into is the more ancient parts of the brain, and dropping us into the states of consciousness which they function under, rather than the way that the prefrontal cortex functions. When we're under stress, the prefrontal cortex becomes all kind of, stressed and muddled and foggy. We find logical thought very hard when we're in that state. So when we're in long-term stressed states, which most of us are because of lockdowns, shutdowns, the pandemic, the US election, Brexit, like you name it, forest fires, flooding, 2020 has been incredible. And so our brains are overwhelmed. We can't logic our way through it. And so that fogginess in the front part of the brain, we're trying to think our way through because that's what we've been taught. We're trying to plan our way through because that's what we've been taught, but we can't. So we're needing to access those other bits of consciousness, those other parts of the brain. But to do that, we've got to be prepared to feel, because feeling what's happening there rather than language and logic. So when we're accessing them through our creativity, through our creative habits, our spiritual rituals, whatever you want to call them, that's when we're going to be able to not figure out how to function in the future, because that sounds logical, but we're going to be able to be more creative in our response to what comes next, because logic ain't going to help us right now.
Yeah, I love this. It's a couple of times during this conversation, I was thinking about how, again, from this idea of external and then internal lockdown, we're trapped in that kind of we're not so able to follow inspired action, whatever word you want to give to it, aligned action, that kind of moment to moment, like intuition says, go do this, and then we can go do it. And for a number of reasons, that gets locked down in times like this, where we either just aren't even in our feeling body enough to be able to even hear that moment of intuition, or we aren't able to follow it because we can't, for example, go to the art gallery that moment of intuition's just asked for. And I was thinking that what we're talking about here, I think, is a way of opening ourselves back up into being in that flow of inspired action, where we're much more able, first of all, to kind of choose into the states. Like the rituals allow us to be in those kinds of states where we're going to be open to hearing that inspiration. And I think more in like grounded in the moment, grounded in our bodies in a way that we're going to be able to follow it. I think we're much more able to be here in what's possible now, not have this kind of like, oh, in order to be creative, of course, I need to be able to go to museums and stuff like that, which isn't going to work right now. Whereas I think the more we're able to be here in these bodies, in the feeling, in what's possible in this moment, my sense is we're going to be led, inspired to do the things that can be done in this moment.
Absolutely. And, so what's happening to us when we're in that lockdown state is, what are we doing? We're following the news. We're scrolling through our phones. We're looking for answers. We're looking to what's happening, answers, safety, some sort of security outside us to root our own safety in. And I'm not saying this in a judgy sense, because I am doing it constantly. And the days I am happiest is the days that I don't. Or that I limit it. And I remind myself that actually knowing whatever this is to know isn't going to change anything about me being in this kitchen with my children right now. It's not going to change anything. So it is better for me to be in this kitchen right now and responding to what is here. And when I'm doing that, I am in my body. I'm in my feeling, and I'm in connection to the people that I'm with. I'm in connection to my immediate surroundings rather than my brain, the prefrontal cortex, trying to control and feel safe and being totally connected to something outside of me that, I don't have control over. So,
oh my gosh, yes. You just really brought something to mind. I haven't consciously consumed the news for probably a couple of decades. It's a long, long time. I can't actually remember when I decided to stop, but it was a long, long time ago. And I've kept that practice of intentionally not consuming the news all the time, even through this last year. And there's been a couple of times where I know where my husband said, I think it might be an idea if we just watch Boris's announcement, just so we know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And the time I remember doing that, I remember thinking, oh, yes, that's a good idea, just to get the information. I'm not going to be consuming all this kind of scare and news and propaganda, just to get the information of kind of what's happening, what do I need to know? And my goodness, because I don't normally do it, I was so aware of what was happening in my body as I listened. And I listened to about 2 minutes of it, and I realized I was starting to get this real sense of fear building up, because clearly he wasn't just giving information. He was trying to also say, this is really serious and this is happening. We should be very worried and we should be scared. And I was just noticing all this coming up in me, like fear, and then like I'm annoyed with him for creating this and I don't agree with him, and like all this was going on for me. And then I said to my husband, can you just mute it until he gets to the bit where he's telling us what needs to happen? He's like, but I don't know when that's going to be. And I'm like, do you know what? I don't need to watch this. There's other ways I can find out what we need to know. I don't need to put myself through this. And it was such a big indication of everything you've just said there. Like, wow, it has such a profound effect. But it was only because I've not had it for so long that it was so noticeable to me. Like, whoa, that's what it created.
Whereas you see, I read the news multiple times a day, waiting for what's the next thing they're going to say. My brain is desperately trying to figure out the answers. It's trying to gather all the information it can, all the data it can, because I love information, and trying to figure out the answer. And it's like, Lucy, you can't, because nobody knows the answer.
There is no answer. Yes.
So it's trying to get recognizing that it's not a moral judgment on myself. It's just, I feel better when I don't do that all day. And when I'm feeling anxious, I do that because I'm desperately looking for the answers. So actually, the more loving response to me is to find another way of dealing with that feeling of anxiety and disconnection, which actually is drawing repetitive shapes in nice colors. That's what I like doing. Or taking photographs of tiny details. That is more nourishing to me in that state than trying to get answers from people who don't have them.
Yeah. No, I really love that. And I think, again, this is not at all about making wrong or shaming the ways that we do our best. Ultimately, we're fundamentally at a very primal level, we're just trying to keep safe. We're just trying to survive.
It's entirely sensible for me to figure out how much danger I'm in right now. That is self-preservation 101. No problem. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work when it becomes repetitive and a kind of a form of self-soothing. It doesn't actually soothe me. It just numbs me, gives me a dopamine hit, numbs me, gives me a dopamine hit, but I'm not getting anywhere, and I don't feel any better at the end of it. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we're almost out of time on today's episode. Is there anything that you feel that'd be helpful for us to explore that we haven't touched on yet? Like ways, and that could be ways to kind of nourish that, keep us in that, or not keep us in, but return us to that creative flow. ways to express it in these times as an act of love, rather than, as you say, grief is, where we're not able to express love. Is there anything that comes up as I ask that we haven't yet touched upon?
I don't think so. I think we've done a pretty good job.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, no, that feels good and right, and as much as I can kind of share on the topic right now.
Oh, well, I feel like we definitely did go into some really, really juicy places. And it's interesting. I'm feeling very, very appreciative at this moment, and realizing, wow, the way my own path took me before this year put me in a really helpful place to navigate this year in a way that was, as kind to my system as possible. And I'm just feeling this real moment of appreciation, like, I feel so fortunate that I kind of came here before, came to those practices, those ways of being before 2020 hit us. But I think for others, this has been an opportunity. This rupture has been an opportunity to discover these practices,
Absolutely.
these rituals.
Yeah.
And so I think, if someone's listening and they haven't yet found that way of being through, these times, I feel like, wow, these things we're talking about here, it's a bit like, dog's not just for Christmas. These rituals aren't just for lockdown. Like, these are really beautiful, enriching ways to live, no matter what. They just are particularly helpful in these times.
I think the most important thing that I would want anybody listening to this to take away from it is to totally disregard everything that we have said and do what lights them up. If lighting a candle is meaningless to them, don't light a flipping candle. Do what makes you feel alive, not what you feel is spiritual or is creative or you should do. It has to be something that connects you, connects you to the world, connects you to your soul, your understanding of the mystery or source. Like, don't perform. Don't be performative in your actions. Be real, even if they seem tiny and insignificant and a bit weird. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever it is that lights you up, do that. Don't do our things.
Yes. Oh, perfect way to leave it. Well done. Love that. Lucy, if listeners would like to find out more about you and your gorgeous work, where can they go find all that good stuff?
They can come over to my website, which is lucyhpearce.com. And my books are on there, and I don't blog as much anymore, but old blog posts, like there's 8 years worth of creative reflections. And then Womancraft is my big baby, and is my publishing company where I publish not only my books, but many other women's books and beautiful pieces of art to connect to the sacred.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucy. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. I love that. Another powerful episode with Lucy. Lockdown is also often a lockdown internally. We aren't able to nourish and express ourselves in all the ways we usually can. So this time will require more intention. The power of ritual can be harnessed to move you into different states, including the ones conducive to creation. Lastly, discover what makes your own soul sing and brings you into flow. That might differ to the examples that Lucy and I gave. If you'd like to get the notes and links for everything we spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes, and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 302. And if you're feeling called to the journey of waking the wild medicine, if 2021 is the year you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to go and watch the replay of our webinar on how to be your wild medicine. You can find a link to that again at primalhappiness.co/medicine. And we begin in January 2021. And there's a few places left. So if you already know you are ready for this journey, go and claim your place there now. And if you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice and hit subscribe. That way you're going to get each episode, and we have got some amazing ones in the back. Go get yourself subscribed, and then you'll get all those glorious episodes straight to the device as soon as they come out. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.